Some things that happen to people sound made up until you hear how they tell it. Tonight I've got 3 of those. Story 1. I was 23 and had just moved into a ground-floor apartment by myself after splitting up with my girlfriend. The building was old, and the flat backed onto a shared alley that ran between 2 rows of houses. My bedroom window faced that alley. It had frosted glass so you couldn't see in or out clearly, but light came through fine, and I usually kept it cracked open at night because the flat got stuffy. About 2 weeks after I moved in, I woke up in the middle of the night because I could hear breathing, not my own. It was coming from the direction of the window. Heavy, slow breathing, the kind where someone is standing still and just existing there. I lay completely frozen for maybe 30 seconds before it stopped. I convinced myself it was someone walking through the alley who had paused to check their phone or tie a shoe. It happened again 3 nights later. Same time, same sound. I sat up and said, "Hello?" The breathing stopped immediately, and there was just silence, like whoever was there had been holding their breath, waiting for me to react. Over the next 2 weeks it became regular. Not every night, but most. Always between 2 and 3 in the morning. I started sleeping with the window shut, which made the flat unbearable in the heat. But at least I couldn't hear anything. Then one morning, I woke up and found the window open. Not cracked the way I used to leave it. Wide open. The latch had been undone from the outside. I checked and realized the frosted glass had a small hole drilled into it near the handle, just big enough for someone to reach a finger through and flip the latch. The hole had been there the whole time. It was just small enough that I'd never noticed it against the textured glass. I called the police. They looked at the window and told me to get the latch replaced. They checked the alley but didn't find anything. I moved out 2 months later. Not because anything else happened, but because I couldn't sleep in that room anymore. Story 2. My name's Laura. I was 27 and working reception at a physiotherapy clinic. The hours were normal, 9 to 5, and the walk home took about 15 minutes through a pretty busy part of town. I'd been doing that same walk for over a year without ever feeling unsafe. One afternoon, I noticed a man walking behind me. That alone obviously isn't unusual, but something about the distance he kept stuck with me. He was always about 20 meters back. When I sped up, he sped up. When I crossed the street, he crossed the street. I told myself I was being paranoid and went inside my building without looking back. The next day, same thing. Same man, same distance, same route. This time I turned around and looked at him directly. He was maybe in his 40s, average build, wearing a grey jacket. When I stopped, he stopped. We stood there looking at each other for a few seconds, and then he turned and walked the other way. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. He started showing up in other places. Outside the clinic when I arrived in the morning, standing across the street, near the supermarket after work. Once sitting in his car outside my building. Every time I looked at him, he'd leave. Never approached, never said a word. Never did anything that crossed a clear line. I went to the police, and they said, without direct contact or a threat, there wasn't much they could do. About a month into this, I came home from work on a Friday evening. My flat was on the 3rd floor, and I always took the stairs. When I got to my door, it was unlocked. I never left it unlocked. Inside, everything looked normal at first. Nothing was missing. Nothing was broken. But things had been touched. My clothes in the bedroom had been moved around. Drawers that I kept closed were slightly open. The bathroom mirror had been wiped clean, even though I hadn't cleaned it in days. And on my kitchen counter, there was a cup of tea. still warm. Someone had been in my flat, made themselves comfortable, and left just before I got home. I stayed with a friend that night and filed another report. The police checked for prints, but didn't find anything useful. I moved within the month. I never saw the man again after that, but I also never stopped checking behind me on the walk home. Story 3. This was when I was 16. We lived in a house at the end of a cul-de-sac that backed onto farmland. It was the kind of area where you could see for miles in one direction, and then turn around and see nothing but houses and driveways. My bedroom was upstairs at the back of the house, overlooking the fields. I used to stay up late on weekends, reading or messing around on my laptop. One Saturday night, around 1 in the morning, I looked out and saw a light moving across the field. It looked like a torch, bobbing slightly like someone walking. It moved in a straight line toward our garden fence, stopped, and went out. I watched for a few minutes, but nothing else happened. The next weekend, same thing. Light crossing the field, stopping at the fence, going dark. This time, I watched longer and saw the outline of a person standing at the fence, looking up at the house. They stood there for maybe 10 minutes before turning and walking back. I told my parents, and my dad went out the next morning to check the fence line. He found a section where the wire had been cut and bent back, just wide enough for a person to step through. There were footprints in the soft ground on our side of the fence, leading up to the back wall of the house, directly below my parents' bedroom window. Not my window, theirs. The footprints went right up to the wall and stopped, like someone had been standing there, pressed against the brickwork, listening. My dad called the police. They came and looked at everything, but couldn't identify who it was from the prints alone. We put up a motion sensor light on the back of the house, and my dad started checking the fence every few days. The wire was cut again twice over the next month, both times in slightly different spots. We never saw the torch again, and we never found out who it was. We moved the following year, and my parents always said it was for other reasons. But I know that wasn't true. Which of these stories creeped you out the most? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.